20 Premier League team lineups predicted. All set-piece takers listed. Welcome to FPL Mate, my name is Dan, and today's video is a big one. Okay, before we get going today, I do need to say this. Today, we have predicted all 20 lineups using information from pre-season friendlies, manager comments, player fitness, and injury concerns, as well as several articles around the world on various fan pages. So a lot of research has gone into this. But I don't think this is going to be 100% accurate. It is impossible to predict all 20 teams with 100% accuracy, and I will try and take you through my thought processes through each team. But I do believe that today's list is the most definitive, most accurate list you will find anywhere on the internet for Game Week 1 lineup predictions. I truly do believe that. A lot of work has gone into this. And if you do appreciate that work, please do make sure you do drop a like. Let's shoot for 2,000 likes on this video, and subscribe if you want to stick around for more FPL content. Okay, so let's go through alphabetically, starting with Arsenal. And Arsenal, I think, are pretty secure, other than the left wing position, which there are still some concerns about. It could be Martinelli, it could be Trossard. Martinelli was the player who started the most recent friendly for Arsenal in the left wing position, which is why I'm slightly backing him, but that could very easily be Trossard as well. The rest of the lineup for me is pretty secure. Zinchenko gets the nod at left back. I think Calafiori needs a few more weeks, maybe, or days to get up to speed to start playing regularly for Arsenal. So I don't think that's going to happen in Game Week 1. And the rest of the team kind of picks itself in many ways. Small chance Gabriel Jesus starts as the striker, with maybe Havertz moving into midfield. But I think Havertz will get the nod as the striker for Game Week 1. In terms of set pieces, Saka is going to be taking those penalties. Free kicks will go to Ødegaard and Rice. And corners will be taken by all those three players I just mentioned. So those three are our set piece takers for Arsenal. And interestingly, on Rice, with Thomas Partey playing in the defensive midfield position, it could give 6.5 million Rice some opportunities to go forward and attack. Opening fixture against Wolves, you've got to pick at least one Arsenal player, maybe, in my opinion. Aston Villa kick off the season against West Ham away, and the biggest question mark for Villa, for me, is Ollie Watkins, because not only are we unsure if he's going to be the penalty taker this season, but also, will he even start Game Week 1? Because he hasn't had very much of a pre-season for Aston Villa, which does throw his minutes into doubt. So I think if Watkins doesn't start, it's likely that Morgan Rogers will move to the central striker position, and we might see Ramsey come in place of Watkins, and that will kind of line up Aston Villa for Game Week 1. We also see Digne, maybe some question marks around him. I think he probably will start, but Maatsen might have a chance as well, the new signing, of course. And Matty Cash, for some reason, I am having some doubts around him, and it seems like a lot of Aston Villa fans do have some doubts as well around Cash starting, but there aren't too many options in defence for Villa at the moment, so he might play, just because those are the only players who are available, and obviously he's a decent player as well. In terms of penalties, we spoke about Watkins. Now, Douglas Luiz was the penalty taker for Villa last season, but he has left the club now, and Watkins doesn't have a great penalty taking record, so I think there's a good chance that maybe Tielemans or McGinn might take the penalties for Aston Villa, but I guess we can't answer that with security until we see Aston Villa get a penalty this season. So that remains to be seen, but Watkins has probably got a good chance of not only starting Game Week 1, but also taking penalties, but it is not guaranteed. Having lost Solanke, Bournemouth have been doing some experiments in the striker position, and Philip Billing is the most recent player to try out in that striker position, with Semenyo playing behind him. However, I don't think it really works out, having seen some information and watching some clips from that Bournemouth game. So therefore, could Semenyo maybe move up and play as the striker? Could we maybe see some other players come in, maybe some younger players come in and maybe play striker as well? It's difficult to say. I think Tavernier is probably the most likely player to start who isn't currently listed on what you see in front of you. The rest of the team is pretty solid. I'm pretty confident that this will be the lineup against Forest. Now, Cliver is most likely to be the penalty taker now that Solanke has left, but again, we don't know that for sure. Billing, Tavernier, Scott seem to be taking those free kicks and corners as well. The biggest prediction for Brentford is that I don't think Tony is going to start in Game Week 1, and I think most people probably agree with that one. It should be Wissa leading the line as the central striker, which also means Mbeumo should be the penalty taker and free kick taker for Brentford. Now, unfortunately, Brentford don't have great fixtures at the start of the season, so I think they are a team to maybe keep an eye on. They're still missing a few defenders through injury as well. So right now, let's see what happens. Let's see if Tony stays at the club. Let's see if he comes back reintegrated into the first 11. And if so, we can start making some decisions around Tony, around Mbeumo in a few weeks' time. But right now, they're a team to watch, maybe not a team to pick from. Guys, just to let you know, you are running out of time to get this amazing deal on Fantasy Football Hub. 50% off your membership, and you will get your yearly subscription money back if you don't win your mini league. That is how confident they are that you will win your mini league using the Fantasy Football Hub tools. We have the likes of fixture analyzers, Opta stats in the background, so you can check all of the underlying numbers, expected goals, big chances, shots in the box, all of those stats, all available on their website, as well as their amazing My Team tool, where it gives you AI team ratings, algorithm-based team ratings, and suggested transfers based on the data we have in the Premier League, which is constantly updating to new information faster than any human could. So make sure you are using the link in the description to get this deal now, guys. You do not want to miss out, and it massively supports this YouTube channel as well when you click on that link. For Brighton, a lot of people have their eyes on João Pedro, hoping that he would play as a central striker, though it looks more likely that he's going to be playing behind the striker, which is most likely to be Welbeck in game week 1. He will still be on penalties though, João Pedro, so definitely still an interesting option in FPL at 5.5 million. Minter, another 5.5 million man, this time a midfielder, is another really interesting pick. Nice and cheap, playing high up on that right-hand side, and he's had a really decent pre-season as well. But we can't talk about Brighton without mentioning Barco. So Barco has been playing left-back all pre-season for Brighton, and not only that, he's also been taking some corners as well and playing pretty advanced, playing pretty high up the pitch. And at just 4 million, he's definitely a player to look at whilst Estupiñán is out injured. When Estupiñán comes back around game week 4 or 5, we might see Barco leave the team, or leave the first 11 if he hasn't impressed maybe. But there's a very good chance that Barco is that hidden gem game breaker for the season. It could do really, really well. More and more people picking up on him as we speak. Nova Bruggen for game week 1 at least, and Steele is going to be the goalkeeper. So yeah, that is Brighton. Let's move on to the next team. Chelsea fans, let me know what you think about this one, because your team is, in a way, quite difficult to pick because you have so many players, right? I think there are a few question marks, but I think I've got this mostly right. And well, I think that most of these players are secure. Certainly with the likes of Nkunku, I think is going to start as the central striker, as Chelsea opt for a slightly more defensive-minded lineup for the opening game against Man City, with Caicedo, Lavia and Enzo making up the midfield there. The left wing position is probably the biggest question mark. It could be Sterling, who has a good history against Man City, but it also could be Mudryk as well. So keep an eye on that one. If we're kind of talking about players and we're not sure if they're going to start or not, if we even have to have that conversation, it probably means that you shouldn't pick them in FPL. And instead, we can go for the secure players like Nkunku, like Palmer. If you like some of these Chelsea defenders, fine as well. Sanchez should be the starting goalkeeper, but to be fair, Chelsea have struggled a little bit defensively in pre-season, so it would maybe give them a miss, particularly given their opening fixture. Palmer is going to dominate those set pieces, and I think that's about it for Chelsea, and we can move on. Crystal Palace are very, very easy to predict. They've been lining up in pre-season with something a little bit like this. We've now got kind of security that Henderson is going to be the starting goalkeeper for Crystal Palace, and at 4.5 million, that's really good value for money. The fullbacks here as well could be pretty interesting. Munoz at 5 million is particularly interesting. The one concern is Edouard. Is he 100% going to start game week 1? Is there a chance Mateta returns from the Olympic Games for France and starts in game week 1? I think it's pretty unlikely. So yeah, Edouard, I'm backing to start in game week 1. Eze is the most nailed guy, and also the penalty taker, free kick taker, and corner taker as well. So he is the pick of the bunch for Crystal Palace, but I do really like Henderson at 4.5 million as well. Everton are a team that are defensively solid, but maybe not great at scoring goals. But hey, things change very fast in football. So we won't spend too much time on the attacking players, although this is how I have lined it up. Eroic Bunam is probably the most likely player to play play in the kind of the defensive midfield areas whilst Garner is injured, but there is a chance that he is removed from that starting 11. And O'Brien at 5 million, the new guy who signed from Lyon for Everton, should start the season in centre-back with Branthwaite currently carrying an injury. Mykolenko at 4.5 million looks secure for the season, so I really do like that defensive pick from Everton, as I do with Pickford for 5 million. But Mykolenko's the cheap way into this Everton team. Calvert-Lewin on free kicks, Young and Garner kind of the set-piece takers there as well, with a little bit of McNeil on corners. So I'm really happy with this Fulham lineup. I don't think there's going to be any changes to this one for Game Week 1. Pretty confident that this is going to be accurate, with Muniz leading the line, Iwobi and Adama either side of him, and Smith Rowe behind the striker, who's looked really good so far in pre-season since signing for Arsenal, with a couple of goals there. Really nice value for money at 5.5 million. This season, we should see Andreas Pereira play a little bit deeper, so therefore I think that rules him out as an FPL option, despite the fact he will be on all of those set pieces, including penalties. But Smith Rowe playing a little bit further forward in the team, I think he is the guy to go for. Robinson at 4.5 million is a nice little pick up there. He got 5 assists, I believe, last season, which is very, very decent. And those are kind of the players I've been looking at for Fulham for their opening run of fixtures. And they have some really nice fixtures to start off the season. Muniz, Smith Rowe, Robinson, these are your guys. Newly promoted Ipswich Town have 2 really difficult fixtures to start off the season, with Liverpool and Man City back-to-back. And they do, however, have some really nice cheap assets. Davis at 4.5 million is their left wing back, playing very advanced on that side and should be taking some free kicks and corners, which is going to be useful stuff. On the other side, we see Ben Johnson, newly signed from West Ham. He costs just 4 million, but it will be playing as an advanced right wing back. In terms of those 4 million defenders, if you're looking for a 4 million defender who will play very, very regularly and will play advanced, very far forward on the pitch, Johnson is your guy. Looking good so far in pre-season. I think he's going to continue in that way. In terms of those set piece takers, it's a little bit difficult for penalties, because Hurst, I believe, is a penalty taker, but Delap maybe takes them when Hurst is not playing. It's difficult to say, though, because we haven't actually seen Delap take a penalty for Ipswich yet. It's just kind of more predictions from fans that he will be the penalty taker, but we don't know that for a fact, much like with Watkins and maybe Cliver at Bournemouth. We don't know for sure yet. Another newly promoted team, Leicester, although slightly more familiar to us Premier League fans, they are seeing some concerns in the striker position, with both Vardy and Daka looking likely to be unavailable for Game Week 1. That will mean Mavididi will move to the central striker position. He's listed as a midfielder in FPL at just 5.5 million, and he's also very much a set-piece taker. He is a guy who often takes free kicks and corners, and will also likely be on penalties with no Vardy and no Daka. So Mavididi could be that differential to go for if you don't mind some of these fixtures. Spurs, Fulham, Aston Villa, Crystal Palace to start off the season for Leicester. Outside of that, we've got a couple of 4.5 million midfielders, nice and cheap there. Winks and Chowdhury, and Fass at 4 million in defence could be interesting as well if you think Leicester are capable of keeping some clean sheets. Liverpool, surprisingly easy to predict for Game Week 1, actually. I think they're going to start off with Game Week 1 with a front three of Luis Diaz, Diogo Jota and Mohamed Salah. Now, this is the exact lineup we saw for their most recent friendly, and they seem to play 2 friendlies on that day. One with their, A team, and I guess the second friendly was with their B team, and this is the A team from what we have seen. So it's going to be Szoboszlai in behind Luis Diaz, Diogo Jota and Salah. We'll probably will see the likes of Gakpo and Darwin coming into the starting 11 at some point during the season, but this is how Liverpool are likely to start off, with Diogo Jota, 7.5 million midfielder in FPL, and he'll be playing as the central striker. That could be absolute FPL gold. It really, really could. Not really too interested in McAllister or Gravenberch. However, some of these defenders are super interesting. Certainly, Trent Alexander-Arnold at 7 million, Kwanzaa at 4.5 could be a real bargain. I think he is going to be preferred under Arne Slot because he is better with his feet, and Virgil van Dijk, of course, is there as well. Tsimikas, I think, will start Game Week 1, but it is a coin toss between him and Robertson for game week 1. So do not hold your breath on the Liverpool left back. I would just avoid Tsimikas and Robertson until we see Robertson properly reintegrated into the Liverpool starting 11. There is a little bit of mystery there, but for the rest of the team, I think we can be pretty confident. Have you checked out the Stick to FPL podcast yet? We've got 3 episodes on the channels now. The latest episode came out just yesterday, where it's all about game week 1. I think you're going to really enjoy this brand new podcast in a studio for the new season. Loads of work has gone into it, and I do recommend you guys check it out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you want to watch it. It is there. Search Stick to FPL or use the link in the description. Manchester City, famously difficult to predict, but considering that Pep Guardiola has given half his team the entire summer off, at least after the international competitions, he's given a lot of players time off, and as such, we've not really seen any English international players or Spain international players, i.e. Rodri, get any, certainly no minutes in pre-season and hardly any training in pre-season as well. So for that reason, we're going to see no Foden, we're going to see no Stones, no Walker, no Rodri, which makes it a little bit easier to predict some of these other players. Now, De Bruyne was given some minutes in the Community Shield, which means he could start in game week 1 in the midfield position, but there's also a chance that McAtee starts against Chelsea as well, and De Bruyne maybe gets some minutes off the bench. The front line should be Doku, Haaland, and Oscar Bob. 5 million midfielder in FPL playing in the right wing position for Man City. That could be really, really interesting. And the one other note is Gavardio, 6 million defender, but because of the kind of lineup that Man City are likely to go with for game week 1, I don't think Gavardio is going to be as advanced as maybe we saw at the end of last season. From game week 2 onwards, things could change a little bit as different players are reintegrated into the Man City team. But for now, this is what I think Man City will be lining up with for their game against Chelsea, and certainly Haaland, Bob and Gavardio are the most interesting picks from an FPL perspective here. So I think this is probably going to be the most controversial lineup prediction of the video, mostly because it seems like the FPL community is full of Manchester United fans, so I'm expecting a lot of angry comments in the comment section, but I'll have to take those on the chin. But let me try and explain my logic to you guys. So Garnacho, I think, is a lock. I think Bruno, Mainu and Casemiro are a lock in midfield. We should see Martinez start. Maguire, Dalot and Onana should be good to go. However, I know a lot of Manchester United fans are going to be very, very keen for their new signings to start getting some minutes. I personally do not think, and a lot of the really kind of, the really in the know fans, those fan magazines, those fan websites, the top guys, they're not predicting these new players to start. So if you're looking for Mazraoui or De Ligt to start on, remember, this Friday for Manchester United, having only been at the club for a few days, it's super, super unlikely, no matter how much you want it to happen. Particularly in the defensive positions, it does take at least a few days to get up to speed on how the manager wants to play. The other kind of controversies are probably in the forward position. Now, Rashford is probably the best bet to play as central striker, but Xerxes could come in here. He has been at the club a little bit longer, but I don't think I'm not super convinced he'll get the nod for game week 1. Of course, no Højlund due to injury, and Ahmad probably takes the right wing position as well, but we do also have the likes of Mason Mount, who can maybe come in and play in the attacking areas. We've seen Bruno play on the wing before as well, and there's a plethora of other options for Manchester United. Anthony, Sancho, so it's really difficult to predict this one. It really, really is, and I do apologise for that, but like I said before, if there is any doubt around some of these players, that probably means just don't pick them in FPL, right? Just pick the players who you're more confident in, and that would be, Bruno, Garnacho, Dalot, maybe Martinez at 4.5. These kind of guys would be the players I'd go for from an FPL perspective. And I'll let you guys argue in the comments about how wrong I am or how right I am, and how De Ligt is going to start game week 1 for whatever reason. Now, Newcastle United, this is how they probably should line up, but they also have the potential to be a little bit chaotic. I think Isak and Murphy will lead the line in the striker and right wing position. And I think it's very likely that Anthony Gordon starts at left wing, but he's another player who hasn't really had much of a pre-season. So we could see Harvey Barnes, who's looking quite sharp, get the nod ahead of Gordon in game week 1. Certainly, we're not expecting Gordon to play 90 minutes. Not quite yet. It's going to take him a week or two to get back up to speed. So do be aware if you are going for Gordon. I know he's a very popular FPL pick. Be aware that there is some potential for this to go wrong. It's likely that Gordon starts, but there is some potential. So just have that in your head when you are picking him. He's not 100% secure, but he's like 80% secure, maybe something like that. And in terms of the midfield, locked. Defense, a little bit different. I think the problem is with the Newcastle defense is that there are so many options. So, you know, we could put in Trippier instead of Livramento. We could put in Lloyd Kelly in the centre back or left back position there as well. Fabian Schär is not totally secure because he has picked up an injury recently as well. But at 5.5 million, I think he's a little bit too expensive for FPL this year anyway. Burn is probably secure, even if Newcastle United fans don't want him to be. He's clearly one of Eddie Howe's favourites. And it does look like Newcastle are looking to pick up new defenders anyway in the transfer market. So just be aware of that before picking those Newcastle defenders. Lewis Hall is probably my favourite of these guys. He looks super good there. But if Burn or Kelly plays left back, that might scupper Hall's minutes potential. But Isak, Murphy at 5.5, Hall, and maybe Pope at 5 million, to be fair, should be pretty good to go for game week 1. Nottingham Forest are another team that have really nice fixtures at the start of the season, opening up with Bournemouth, then Southampton and Wolves, and this is how they should line up. Hudson-Odoi, Wood and Elanga making up the front line, with Gibbs-White playing just behind the striker. Sangare is interesting, only 4.5 million, so if you're looking for that bench midfielder, maybe you can go for Sangare instead of Winks. And I think most of the defence is pretty solidified now as well. Sells taking the place between the sticks. Gibbs-White should dominate the set pieces for Nottingham Forest, although there is a small chance that Wood takes penalties as well. Wood has a really good penalty taking record, and Gibbs-White has never actually taken a penalty whilst Wood has been on the pitch. So just something to be aware of there. But yeah, in general, definitely a few players from this Forest team that I would be interested in. Wood is probably my favourite, quite like Murillo at 4.5 million, and Sells at 4.5 in goal could be pretty good as well. Newly promoted Southampton have got a gem in their team, and that's Brereton Diaz, listed as a 5.5 million midfielder in FPL, but should be leading the line in the striker positions alongside Adam Armstrong. Potential penalty taker there as well. Smallbone is mostly the set piece taker, and they should line up defensively with Walker-Peters on the left and Sugawara on the right. New signing there as well. So Bednarak, Stevens and Harwood-Bellis represent our 4 million defenders, so good value for money there, particularly if you're looking for some bench options. Harwood-Bellis looks like the pick of those, and McCarthy should start the season as the goalkeeper. He's 4.5 million. Now, I probably spent way too long trying to research and work out how Spurs will line up in game week 1. I think the back line is pretty secure. Vicario will start in goal. Van der Ven, Romero and Pedro Porro are secure for game week 1 as well. Small concerns around Udogie, but I think he should get the nod. It's just fitness issues with him, really. Bentancur, I think, is pretty good there. The other central midfielder is a little bit more contentious. But the big decision really is around whether Solanke will start game week 1. He's not really had too much of a pre-season, but he is up to speed. Well, certainly not with Spurs, but he is up to speed with the Premier League and how the Premier League plays. And as a striker, and the kind of player Solanke is, I think he will integrate quickly. So if Ange Postecoglou is happy with Solanke's training this week, I do think he will get the nod in the central striker position. If not, it will be Kulusevski playing there instead. In terms of the right wing position, Kulusevski could also play there instead of Brennan Johnson. Actually not convinced that Brennan Johnson will start game week 1 anymore. He could, but I'm not convinced by it. And that leaves Maddison. Where is Maddison going to play? Is he going to play as the attacking midfielder? Very, very good chance that happens if Kulusevski needs to play in the striker position or the right wing position. So I appreciate that was pretty complicated, guys. Basically, I probably wouldn't pick Johnson, Kulusevski, Maddison, really. And I would instead look more towards Son and go for Solanke. I think Solanke is fine to go for, but you have to appreciate that there is a little bit of risk around Solanke. The rest of the team, I'm pretty happy with. Son, penalty taker, he will continue that way. Maddison and Pedro Porro have been the set piece takers for free kicks and corners over the past year or so. West Ham have some pretty rough fixtures, but they are a team that have signed a lot of good players during this pre-season. They've got a really good transfer market, and I think they could have a decent season, but I think they're mostly a team to keep an eye on, particularly as I'm not expecting many of their new signings to be integrated immediately into Game Week 1, with Rodriguez the possible exception to that. So Antonio, I think, is likely to start Game Week 1. Fulkrug could get the nod in the striker position, but I think Antonio is slightly more likely from what I've seen, and Mavropanos probably plays in the centre-back position as well. It might be slightly too soon for Todibo. Oh, Kilman as well, another signing there. I think he'll start Game Week 1, but yeah, Rodriguez and Kilman will probably be the only two new signings to start, unless you think Fulkrug will play. There is a chance of that. Kudus, Bowen, Paqueta, yeah, of course they're going to play. Absolutely brilliant players. Somerville probably going to be on the bench, and I think, to be fair, Kudus looks really good value at 6.5, and Bowen can be fixture-proof at 7.5. I would probably give the defence a miss, though, for West Ham. Which brings us to our final team, Wolverhampton Wanderers, another team with absolutely horror fixtures for the start of the season. However, they have had some interesting results in pre-season. Strand Larsen looking pretty good as the new striker. He-Chan likely to play alongside him. Mario Jr., or Lamina, as he used to be called, and Gomez should be in midfield. Doyle, some maybe question marks around him. Bellegarde has a good chance of playing over Doyle, but I think Doyle will probably get the nod. For defence, we've got Nori here. I think an interesting pick in the defence here is Mosquera, 4 million defender, but I do think there's a good chance that Wolves revert to a 4 at the back during the slightly easier games. I think they'll start with a 5 at the back formation against Arsenal, but we might see some 4 at the back game weeks as well, which will probably mean Mosquera goes to the bench with Totti and Dawson being the main starting players. He-Chan, the penalty taker, I think above Cunha, who I don't think is going to be available for Game Week 1. I think he's just not quite ready to go for Game Week 1. And Sarabia is injured as well, so Doyle most likely to take some free kicks and corners in his absence. And there we have it. Those are all 20 teams. Wow, guys, what a video. A big video with a lot of research in. Let me know what you think about the lineups. Did we get everything correct? And do you think I've got it correct for your Premier League team? Let me know down in the comments section. Of course, if you do appreciate what we did today, make sure you drop a like. Do subscribe if you're new around here for daily FPL content. And I'll see you tomorrow, where I will finally reveal my Game Week 1 team. See you later, mates. Bye-bye.